My wife's family said, "Pay for our Maui vacation, but your parents aren't invited." So I sent my parents on a trip instead and ended the marriage. My name is Daniel, I am 34, and I live in Colorado. For 3 years, I had been with a woman named Emily. At first, she seemed practical, sensible, and caring. But one evening at her parents' house changed everything I thought I knew about her and her family. We were having our normal Sunday dinner together, something that had always been a pleasant routine. Her mother placed a fresh salad on the table, along with a bottle of wine. Her father sat at the head of the table, clearing his throat as if he had something important to say. The house looked the same as always, cozy, warm, and inviting. But the atmosphere shifted the moment her father turned to me. His voice carried a weight that wasn't there before as he said, "So, Daniel, we're planning a Maui trip this year. The whole family. We thought it would be right if you covered the cost since you're part of the family now." At first, I actually laughed to myself, thinking it was a joke. But the expression on his face, along with the silence that followed, told me it wasn't. Her mother quickly added, "You have steady work, Daniel. You care about Emily. You should help us. Traditions matter." But the tradition they were talking about wasn't splitting the cost. It was me covering everyone's entire vacation, including the children. The bill would have been enormous. I kept my voice calm and asked, "Would my parents come, too?" But her father shut that down instantly. "No, this is our family. Your parents wouldn't fit with our plans." That sentence hit me hard. My parents had never once asked me for money. And now here I was being asked to fund an expensive vacation that excluded them. I looked at Emily, expecting her to step in, to say something like, "That's ridiculous. Of course Daniel's parents should be included." But she didn't. She sat there, eyes lowered, and quietly said, "Maybe this is just how my family does things." That single sentence felt like the first real crack in our relationship. The rest of dinner passed in a blur, with her brother joking about surf lessons and her sister scrolling through her phone, smiling as if the money had already been settled. The children ran around our feet. On the surface, it all looked harmless, but I felt like I was being tested in a way that went beyond reason. On the drive home, Emily tried to lighten the mood. She talked about work, about dessert, about anything except what had just happened. But my mind replayed it over and over. Later that night, when we finally spoke about it, she told me I was blowing things out of proportion. She called it a tradition and said refusing would look like I wasn't committed to the relationship. I looked at her and said, "If my parents aren't welcome, neither is my money." That sparked an argument. She called me selfish. She said, "My family is everything to me. If you can't step up for them, what does that say about us?" Lying in bed later, I couldn't sleep. My thoughts circled around one question. Was this really love? Or was it manipulation dressed up as tradition? I remembered my parents, how they'd worked hard their whole lives, how they'd taken simple road trips and never demanded anything from me. And now, I was facing a future where Emily's family expected me to hand over thousands just to be accepted. If I gave in now, where would it end? Paying off debts? Covering bills? Funding their lifestyle? The days that followed were tense. Emily tried to act as though nothing had happened, but every time she spoke about the future, I could only picture myself as an ATM for her family. One evening, she confronted me again. "My parents need an answer. They're ready to book flights. Why are you being so stubborn?" Her father had even told her that if I wanted to be taken seriously, I needed to show commitment by paying. That wasn't commitment. That was exploitation. I realized then that this wasn't just about Maui. This was about respect, boundaries, and whether or not Emily was willing to stand by me instead of her family's demands. Finally, after another heated argument, she looked at me coldly and said, "If you can't do this, maybe you're not ready for a long-term future with me. My family is non-negotiable." Those words landed like a punch to my chest. Not because I wanted to give in, but because I finally saw the truth. Her family measured my worth in money, and Emily was willing to let them. When she left for Maui, suitcase in hand, she told me, Maybe this time apart will make you realize what's important. I just smiled faintly and said, yeah, maybe it will. But instead of sending money to Hawaii, I booked a cabin in the Rockies for my parents. When I told them, my mom's voice lit up in a way I hadn't heard in years. A few days later, we were hiking trails, fishing by rivers, and cooking dinner together in the warm glow of a cabin fireplace. No demands, no strings, just real family the way it should be. Halfway through Emily's trip, she called me, panicked. Daniel, the hotel bill is higher than expected. Dad said you should transfer some money. I took a deep breath and said calmly, Emily, I'm not your family's bank. If they can't afford their vacation, they shouldn't have booked it. She snapped, calling me selfish, saying I was embarrassing her. I couldn't help but let out a short laugh, not from humor, but from clarity. Selfish? No, Emily. I've been generous for years, but your family treats me like a wallet, and you're okay with it. That's not love. That's a transaction. She went silent for a moment before saying coldly, you'll regret this. Then she hung up. When she returned from Maui, she walked into my apartment sunburned and distant. Her first words were, my family thinks you're cheap. My dad says you embarrassed us. Do you know how hard it was to defend you? I looked at her calmly and said, if defending me is that hard, maybe you shouldn't have to anymore. Her face fell as I told her it was over. This isn't about one trip, Emily. It's about what that trip showed me. Your family sees me as a wallet, and you let them. I handed her the box of things she kept at my place. She left without another word. Weeks later, I heard through friends that their Maui vacation had been a disaster. Her brother overspent, her father fought with staff, and Emily came home miserable. Meanwhile, my parents still talk about the cabin trip as the best vacation they ever had. Simple, peaceful, and full of memories. And me? I'm at peace too, because I learned that love isn't about paying to be accepted. It's about respect, boundaries, and the people who stand by you without demands. So, in the end, I didn't just save my money, I saved my self-respect. Thanks for listening till the end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories.